Today we're going to make our Mario and Luigi more lifelike by adding some highlighting and shading. So I've already opened up my postcard, and I also opened up that color sample that we used for coloring. And I opened that up because this one does have some highlighting and shading, and so it's just for inspiration and to kind of help me to see where things might be shaded and where other things might be highlighted. So when you do this, you have to think like an artist, and you have to think about if a light was hitting them, which parts of their clothing, their hat, their face, their hands, every part of them, which parts would have a highlight on them, and which parts might be darker because they're shaded. Okay, so let's start out by adding another new layer. And we will double click on that and call it highlight and shading. And all of our highlighting and shading will go on that layer. Okay, so to begin, we're going to be changing the colors of our foreground and our background. So if I click on my foreground color, I want to use the eyedropper tool to grab whatever it is on Mario or Luigi that I am highlighting or shading. So let's go ahead and we'll start with all of the green areas of Luigi. So I'm going to grab that green color that I used for him. Okay, so with the foreground color selected as green, I'm going to switch that, and I'm also going to grab green for my background color. So my background color and my foreground color are both the same shade of green. So what I want to do now is I want to make it so that the foreground color is a little bit lighter and the background color is a little bit darker. Okay, so let's click on the foreground color, and I'm going to move into these lighter shades. This will be for the highlighted areas. And go ahead and say okay. You can pull this into gamut if you want to, but I do want to just point out that since I was grabbing colors off of these guys over here, that many of these colors are probably not in gamut, and that's okay. If you want to make sure everything's in gamut, you can, but remember that's not necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And then I'm clicking on my background color, but this time I'm moving into a darker shade for those shaded areas and say okay. All right, so now I have a lighter shade of my Luigi green and a darker shade of my Luigi green. So I'm going to start painting the highlighted and shaded areas. But before I do that, I want to select these green areas. So I'm going to go to my magic wand, which is with the quick selection tool. Make sure that sample all layers is still checked, and then select all the green areas. Remember to hold Shift to select multiple areas. You can select this L in the hat if you want to, but I don't think that would probably take on too much shading or highlighting. If you accidentally click something wrong, like I just clicked in the black area, all you need to do is hit Command Z and go back to where you were instead of having to reselect everything. Okay, I'm going to try that again. I have to be really careful in this little tiny spot. Okay, got it that time. Okay, so with my green areas selected, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. And we'll start with the highlight. Go to your paintbrush, and we want to be on a soft brush, which will have a hardness of 0. So a soft round brush, you can either click it right here, just make sure your hardness is at 0. But we're also up here on the tools option panel, we're going to change the opacity to about 50 and the flow to about 50. Doesn't have to be perfect, but somewhere in that area. Okay. And then I'm going to look at my example over here. So I can see like this part of the bill is highlighted and the top of the hat is highlighted. So I will start with that. Now I don't have to be really careful because remember I have just the green areas selected. So it's only going to go into those areas. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit of highlight there. And some on the top of his hat here. And this soft brush and the opacity and flow being down is going to give me a nice soft natural look. And we'll get a little bit of highlight there. Okay, now I'm going to use my toggle switch to switch to the darker green, and definitely have a darker green under the bill. And at the bottom of the hat back here, a little bit more shading there. Okay, and you can be really conservative with this and not do a lot of it, or you can be more assertive and really get some of that shading and highlighting going. It's totally up to you, and it's whatever you want to do, and it's really your own personal style. Okay, so that's for you to decide. But you can see that Luigi's hat, compared to everything else on the picture, looks more three-dimensional. Everything else looks still pretty flat. So I'm going to continue on working on this, and I will speed this up. Okay, that looks good. Next, on to Mario. Okay, and I am going to continue doing this for the rest of the picture. Okay, so my Mario and Luigi have really come to life here. If you want to do some shading on the hands, you can use a gray color, but since the hands are white, it's really hard to highlight that. But if you look at the example over here, there is some gray color being used underneath the hands in the shaded area, so I will go ahead and do that. Okay, well that will be it for today. You will have one more tutorial to finish this project up, so go ahead and save and let me know if you have any questions.